Is anybody here really new? No? We're all okay. Something that I have in mind to develop going into the future is an extensive, like a several-part presentation on conceptions of divinity, as you see the title here. In part, it was inspired by a presentation at Illinois Institute of Technology, where there was a plan to have a 2 or 3 part presentation, and the first one went for 4 hours, and they only got through the beginning stages. So it's a topic that apparently newer people have interest in, and there's lack of clarity. So this is not for new people exactly, but it's a beginning point. In Srimad Bhagavatam, we say that Srimad Bhagavatam is spoken by, who's the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam? Shukadev Goswami. So Shukadev Goswami doesn't even appear until the last chapter of Canto 1, chapter 19. Prior to that, it's Sutta speaking to the sages of Naimisharanya, headed by Shaunaka, descendant of Bhrigu Muni. So he appears in the 19th chapter. In part, we're introduced first to the person who is going to speak Srimad Bhagavatam to, Maharaj Parikshit, and after hearing several chapters about the appearance of Maharaj Parikshit and the qualities of Maharaj Parikshit and the ruling of Maharaj Parikshit, the ideal qualities of the king exhibited by Maharaj Parikshit, we then hear of this very puzzling event where Maharaj Parikshit offends a sage and the sage's son curses him and he's to die in 7 days and all of that. So the questions at the end of Canto 1, Chapter 19, the questions presented by Maharaj Parikshit to Shukadev Goswami are 2, and then the next 3 chapters are a response to that, and then the rest of the Srimad Bhagavatam is an expansion of those 3 chapters, in one sense. The 2 questions Maharaj Parikshit asks are, what's the duty of a man who's about to die? And who can say they're not about to die? He knew he had 7 days, we don't know we have 7 minutes. What's the duty of someone who's about to die? And the second is, what is that subject matter that he should hear, chant, and always remember? So this phrase, Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Dhyeya Pujascha Nityada. Those are his 2 questions. And then Canto 2 begins, where Shukadev Goswami doesn't speak until Canto 2. And in Canto 2, the first 3 chapters, we are hearing of conceptions of divinity. And keeping it really simple, there's a nice purport at the beginning of Canto 2, Chapter 3, where Prabhupada summarizes. But the first thing that Shukadev Goswami does is he emphasizes the importance of forming a personal conception of God. But that's difficult for people that don't have a conception of God. And so he speaks of the Virat Rupa, not exactly in the same language as we find in chapter 11 of Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna is seeing the universal form, like this image here, the universal form of Krishna. But rather it's a pantheistic description. Pantheistic description. Pantheism means seeing God in nature. These children need another place to play. Whoever's organizing the children needs to take care of that. Boys are very nice, and they need their space to be nice. Pantheism, seeing God in nature. So the hills are as stacks of bones, the trees are as hairs, the river are as veins, the eyes of the Lord are the sun and the moon, and developing a personal conception of God just by the things that we see within nature. And gradually bringing the mind to a personal conception. It's a long chapter, there's other parts, with some sense of rendering some service to God. Then the second chapter is seeing the localized feature of the Supreme, that is the feature of Paramatma. And there's an important gentle and gradual description is the previous conception one must let go, and then the next conception one enters into and gradually becomes absorbed in. It's releasing the previous step where your foot was and putting your foot down to the next step. You can't be both. And this Paramatma conception, there's details found within Chaitanya Charitamrita, summarized in teachings of Lord Chaitanya, where we find the different symbols of Vishnu according to where they are placed in the hands of Vishnu. There's 24 different names of the personality of Godhead according to those positions. So notice from upper left down clockwise, conch club, disc, conch club, lotus, and disc. This is an artist painting of Janardana, the Lord of the Heart. Here he is in the standing position, standing on the lotus within the heart. And we find this description in Svetashvatara Upanishad. There's some measurement given, measures the size of a thumb. The Purusha is always present as a supersoul within the hearts of all living beings. Prabhupada explains that this means the heart of the human is about the size of a thumb. It's not that Paramatma is restricted to the size of a thumb. One devotee asked Prabhupada, what about an ant? The ant is very tiny. Is he dragging Supersoul around as he walks? And Prabhupada laughed and said, gave this explanation. According to the size of the heart, because it's not that the Supersoul is confined, like in a prison cell or in a room or something, to a confined space. It's just he accepts that position according to the living entity and accommodates the living entity's movements in the material world. And then the third chapter is the Bhagavan conception, the pure devotional service, change in heart. So then, again, the commentary explains, one must let go of the previous, not like you leave the conception that there's the Lord in the heart, but the attention focuses on the personal feature, the Bhagavan feature. And with that focus on the Bhagavan feature, then activities of serving the Supreme Person. And that's the third in sequence conception. So Krishna is situated in the spiritual world, and one who moves in the process of conceptions of divinity to the Bhagavan conception can begin service to him. And his position is identified in Brahma Samhita, and this phrase, the introductory verse of Brahma Samhita, we all know. Let's say it together. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karanakaranam. So he's amongst Ishwaras, he's the Parama Ishwara, and he goes by the name Krishna. And his form is full of eternality, knowledge, and bliss. And he's the original, who has no origin, and he's the cause of all causes. So that's Krishna's, this Bhagavan conception. Of course, Srimad Bhagavatam is introducing that conception of divinity, the Bhagavan conception. It's not to negate or deny the others, but the others are less complete, and the Bhagavan conception is most complete. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the Supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. So that's the Bhagavan conception. And he's particularly called Govinda because this Govinda form is found in Goloka, where he's tending cows. Now, there are conceptions of divinity that likes to equate other Ishwaras to Ishwara Parama, called demigod worship, or worship of the Devatas. Now, the worship of the Devatas, conception of divinity, is discussed quite clearly, explicitly, and boldly in Bhagavad Gita. First of all, again, Krishna's position as Ishwara Parama, or in the language of the Bhagavatam, Param Satyam Dhimahi. The Bhagavatam is giving us an understanding of the supreme truth. Satyam Param Dhimahi. Let's say this verse together. Mata Parataram Nanyat Kinchedasti Dhananjaya Mai Sarvam Nidam Protam Sutre Manikana Iva. This verse is indicating there isn't a truth superior to Krishna. Matak Parataram Nanyat. He is the highest truth. There's no truth superior to him, and everything else is resting upon him. That's the nature of the absolute truth. Just like money, gana, different pearls are strung on a sutre, or a thread. Sutre mani gana iva. Everything is resting on Krishna, like pearls are resting on the thread that holds the pearls together. He is the highest truth. There's no truth higher to him. There's no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. So there's other verses, multiple other verses in Bhagavad Gita that express the same. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pravartate. Krishna is he's the source of everything. Everything that exists comes from him. That's Krishna's position. So clearly, this Ishvara Parama Krishna, or the Bhagavan conception, is the concluding conception. And although explicitly stated, still there are persons that don't see that, or they hold a different view. Krishna explains they hold this different view because they have desire in their heart, and because of the desire in their heart, they have some faith that Krishna gives. He's the one that gives them the faith that says, this personality, that personality, the other personality, I should worship them too because they'll take care of fulfilling some desire. It's described in the 7th chapter, several verses, 7th and the 9th chapter, very explicit language. Kamaistai hritya jnana prapadyante anya devata tam tam niyamamasaya prakritya niyatasaya. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. So the demigods are there, they're real, they're not imaginary, and one approaches the demigods because there's a strong desire, and the demigods have the power to fulfill that desire or deliver necessities of life. It's the whole arrangement of the karma kanda section of the Vedas, that you can do this yagya, that yagya, or another yagya, and all the necessities of life are fulfilled. You'll just be very busy performing different yagyas and propitiating different demigods so that all your necessities will be fulfilled. And that's, in one sense, it's good. It's good in the sense that it helps support the recognition that there's a higher authority. And I'm not independent, I'm subordinate to this higher authority. And you look up to the high, just like, a little sharing. I found the language very interesting. I was at Texas A&M in College Station, Texas, some while ago, a couple weeks ago. And there was a student, there's a really good group of students there. And one of them came forward saying, the children need a place to play. The children need a place to play. They don't have to be quiet because they can't be quiet. They just need a place to play. They said, South Indian girl, grad student, said, how do I decide between the Advaita and the Bhagavad? This is her language. The Advaita and the Bhagavad Gita conception. She explained it 3 times. The Advaita conception is, in the ultimate analysis, everything is one, and the goal is to become merged with Brahman. And then in Bhagavad Gita, it speaks about not just the Brahman, but Atma and Paramatma. And the soul is to look up to Paramatma, be respectful to Paramatma, worship Paramatma, and serve Paramatma, and become fixed in that conception. So, how do I decide which one to choose? She was really clear what the conceptions were. So I asked, do you accept Bhagavad Gita? She said yes. Then it's really not difficult to make the decision because Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Bhagavan. And Bhagavan is speaking the Bhagavan conception. You should serve him and worship him. Not difficult. Then she repeated, yeah, but. So apparently she had but she had some training because it's abundantly out there, and her upbringing gave her some of it. A conception of the impersonal Advaita school. She called it the Advaita school. So there's a conception, become one with Brahman. That's not part of this evening's talk. But for those that have that impersonal conception, those that did go a step beyond that, there's this idea that there are many gods. But the idea of many gods, which is very prevalent, as is the Advaita conception of divinity, they arise from different sources. That's also in Bhagavad Gita. Vita raga paya krodha. If there's too many desires, then some people worry, if I worship Krishna, that I won't get my desires fulfilled. I won't be rich. And I want to be rich, so I worship the demigods, or whatever their ideas are. So it's kama. It's arising from intelligence, directed by, or influenced by, or guided by kama, desire for material enjoyment, and it works. Being satisfied, the demigods fulfill or supply those wants and those necessities of life. The children need a place to play. They're nice kids, they just need a place to play. Okay. So as it says, this is chapter 7, text 20. Here's same chapter, a few verses later. Antavatu palam tesham tadbhavatyalpamedasam devan devayajo yanti madbhakta yanti mamapi. Krishna says, men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. So, alpa medasam, their medha, their intelligence is alpa, very limited. And because of that limited intelligence, their interest is in something limited. And the limited is something that's temporary. And so they're inspired to get the limited and temporary something, and they have a means to do it. The Vedas supply. The demigods supply, according to the codes of the Vedas. But since the capacity of the demigod to supply comes from the source of everything, that this is conceptions of divinity for those that came a little late. Chapter 9 speaks about the avidhi purvakam. It's meant to yajanti avidhi purvakam. The worship is done without proper understanding, because the source of everything is not the demigod. The source of everything is where the demigods get their sources from. So, ye pyanya devata bhakta yajante shradayandita epi mam ekam kaunteya yajantya vidhi purvakam. Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way. The worship is meant for Krishna. Like earlier, Krishna says, the faith that they have to worship the demigod is given by Krishna, because he's in their heart. And Krishna sees what their desire is, and so he gives them the faith. There's nothing wrong with that faith. It's given by Krishna. It's elevating, at least gradually and gently and progressively elevating. There they go. So the whole of the Vedic process is to gradually, many lifetimes gradually elevate a soul to the higher position, the higher conception of life. The Bhagavatam is like an elevator. You just press the button and you don't have to go up so many flights of stairs. You go right to the top floor. Prabhupada has used that metaphor. The staircase and the elevator metaphor. And the bhakti process is the elevator process. It takes one directly to the Bhagavan conception. Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam do it explicitly. And one other reference, conceptions of divinity-wise, as we started with Sri Brahma Samhita, that Ishvara Parama Krishna verse, there's a whole section of the Brahma Samhita that describes the position of the demigods respective to Govinda. So this is a conceptions of divinity topic covered in Brahma Samhita. So we're going to go through 5 verses of Brahma Samhita, starting with 43, where the realms, Devi Dham, Mahesh Dham, Vaikuntha Dham or Haridham, and Goloka Dham, they're described. And then we go back down to Devi Dham, Devi herself, the position of Lord Brahma, the position of Ganesha, the position of the sun god, all in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the Bhagavan conception. They're aspects of, they're servants of, they're worshippers of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. This is, it helps. Brahma Samhita is a little detailed, but it helps understand the conceptions of divinity topic. How does this fit together with that? How does the whole of conceptions of divinity work when there are multi-gods, or there's one God? Like this girl was asking, what about the impersonal conception and the personal conception? How do I choose? How do I decide? How do I go about deciding? We had a nice discussion. I'm not giving you the whole response to her question, but it's, in one sense, it's much easier with college students because they're forming conceptions, and those of you that are already in your household life, you've already formed your conceptions. And then it's a little more difficult to, once conceptions are formed and faith is already there, to move faith from there to here, from the demigod conception or the impersonal conception to the Bhagavan conception. And why? I'm comfortable over here, or my parents won't understand, or something. My relatives, they'll think I've become a fanatic or something. I don't know. All kinds of hesitations. So youthful minds are very open to learn, and it's a nice time to help them learn. So here's Brahma Samhita. These 5, we'll start with this one. Now this has a singing of Mahatma Prabhu. Maybe some of you know or have heard, or he's a really good speaker. He's really expert at japa retreats and all kinds of things. So here he's singing these 5 Govinda prayers.
Te
Well, the verses, this is the introductory verse to a whole section. And in the introductory verse, it speaks of this Goloka, Namni, Nija Damni. It's the Dham of Govinda. And Bhaktisiddhanta says, Lord Brahma is speaking the verse and he's looking up from his realm, Devi Dham. Above Devi Dham is Mahesh Dham. Above Mahesh Dham is Hari Dham. And then the topmost of all is Goloka Dham. So here's the translation and also the drawing or the painting. Lowest of all is located Devi Dham, the mundane world. Next above it is Mahesh Dham, the abode of Mahesh. Above Mahesh Dham is placed Hari Dham. So those arrows are showing at the bottom that's Devi Dham, that's one universe, and all the other orbs, there are many other universes floating in the Garbhodak ocean within this universe. And then above, beyond this universe, and on the other side of the ocean of Garbhodak ocean, there's this, the causal ocean, not Garbhodak ocean. The causal ocean, on the other shore of the causal ocean is Mahesh Dham. We'll see some paintings. And above them all is located Krishna's own realm, named Goloka. So that's the Vaikuntha region. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who has allocated their respective authorities to the rulers of those graded realms. There's Krishna in the middle, and the various worshippers of Krishna from different regions of creation. So there's the painting again, isolated, and we're going to take a close-up in the bottom section, the Devi Dham section. There's Devi Dham. There's the Garbhodak ocean that fills up half of the universe, and then Garbhodakshay Vishnu reclining on Anantashesh. And then from his navel comes a lotus stem, and the 14 planetary systems are situated within that stem, and at the very top is Brahmaloka. And all these others, they're similar universes floating. Now we're going to take a closer look at above Devi Dham. You see on the other side of the universe, there's Lord Shiva. Well, let's take a close look. There's Shambhu, and there's Durga. She has her abode down here that she's in charge of, but she's always with her consort, Lord Shiva. And look very carefully. This is Mahakaladam. It's dark, and on the other side of that dark area is Shadashivaloka. So Lord Shiva is a little mysterious. He has different places. And there's a Mahakaladam that's also at the bottom of the universe. Mahakala means great time. It's when the universe is destroyed, and the 11 Rudras, that's where they hang out, doing tapasya, waiting for the signal to help Anantashesh destroy the universe. The flames come from his mouth, they do their dance, and everything burns. So Mahakaladam is down there. There's a Mahakaladam up here. On the other side is a region of light, the language of Bhaktisiddhanta. So Mahesh Dham is this region that's above Devi Dham. And then there's Hari Dham. And these are all the spiritual planets in the vastness of the spiritual sky. There's Sadashiva Loka. Here's the Brahma Jyoti. And then within the Brahma Jyoti are the spiritual planets, Haridam. And at the very top of Haridam is Ayodhyadam. That's one of the Vaikuntha planets. And then so above the Vaikuntha planets or Haridam is Golokadam. That's what the verse is saying. So on the conceptions of divinity topic, the topmost conception corresponds with the topmost abode from Brahma Samhita, and that's this Goloka Dham. And in the corolla, or the center of the lotus-like shaped Goloka Dham is the abode of Radha and Krishna. And the petals are many, 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 many gigabytes of petals surrounding the central petal, and these are the abodes of the gopis and the other associates of Krishna. They each have their own abode. And there's other parts of Goloka Dham as well. So in the very next verse, after describing the abodes of these beings, Devi, Mahesh, and Hari, and Govinda, the very first one that he, Brahma, speaks about is Durga. Her abode, now we're hearing about her. So there's a lot to say about all of these things. Shrishti, Sthiti, Pralaya. These are the three phases of creation. Shrishti, Sthiti, Pralaya. Creation, maintenance, and Pralaya, destruction. Those are potencies invested in Durga to assist the Supreme Lord in his affairs. She is directly the consort of Lord Shiva, and she is directly the Chaya, first word of the second line. Chaya, in the word for word, is the shadow. She is the shadow potency of the Supreme Lord, and she goes by the name Durga. The external potency, Maya, who is of the nature of the shadow of the Chit potency, is worshipped by all people as Durga, the creating, preserving, and destroying agency of this mundane world. In this particular case, the word Chit potency, it can mean different things in different situations. In this case, it means the spiritual potency. The Chit potency in this case means she is the shadow of the Chit potency. She is the shadow of Rama Devi. Rama Devi is the internal potency of Mahavishnu, and Durga is the Chaya Devi of Rama Devi, the Chit potency of the Supreme Lord. So she's of the Lord's potency, she just has a particular function. And that function is within this material world, she has potencies to help with creation, preserving, and destroying. Adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in accordance with whose will Durga conducts herself. There she is, Durga. She's receiving the glance of Mahavishnu, and the glance of Mahavishnu is assisted by Rama Devi, his internal potency, who then entrusts living entities and the Kala Shakti, time potency, to impregnate this Chaya Devi, or Durga. And then she does her job. Shrishti, Sriti, Pralaya. She's his, in language of Brahma Samhita, in language of Bhakti Siddhanta, she's the maid servant. Just like a queen may have a maid servant. Now, the queen is the queen, and the maid servant is the maid servant of the queen. She's not the queen. But she just does everything the queen wants because she's the maid servant. So, Chaya Devi is compared to the maid servant of Rama Devi, like a co-wife, kind of. Here's Bhakti Siddhanta's description of what she does. Devi Dham, this realm, is from the previous verse, consisting of the 14 worlds, and Durga is its presiding deity. She is 10-armed, representing the tenfold fruitive activities. She rides on the lion, representing her heroic prowess. She tramples down Mahishasura, representing the subduer of vices. She is the mother of two sons, Kartikeya and Ganesha, representing beauty and success. She is placed between Lakshmi and Saraswati, representing mundane opulence and mundane knowledge. She is armed with the 20 weapons, representing the various pious activities enjoined in the Vedas for suppression of vices. She holds the snake, representing the beauty of destructive time. So that's Devi. And Durga, this is Bhakti Siddhanta now, is possessed of Durga, which means prison house. When jivas, begotten of the material potency, marginal potency, forget the service of Krishna, they are confined in the mundane prison house, the citadel of Durga. And so it is. Once we're in prison, how do you get out? Once you're involved in material fruitive activities, how do you get out? You don't, unless the prison warden lets you out. So here's another nice painting of dealing with Mahishasura, and the lion is helping her. Very well-known personality in the realm of demigod worship or Shakti worshippers, most prominent. But the position of Durga and the position of Yogamaya, you know this pastime with Kamsa after he tries to kill the 8th child of Devaki. Turns out it's not the 8th child of Devaki, it's the child of Yashoda, but it's a female child. And it was Yogamaya who Krishna summoned to do all this work. Take Balaram from the womb of Devaki and place Balaram in the womb of Rohini instead. And then take birth as the daughter of Yashoda. Then I'll have you brought back here. Kamsa will try to kill you. So she then takes the form of Durga. And it's Yogamaya has a subpotency or reflection of her potency, and that's Durga. There's, like Prabhupada gives this example, electricity. You've heard it many times, I'm sure. Electricity is one energy, but an electrician can use that one energy to make things hot or make things cold. But it's one energy, electrical energy. Similarly, this potency of the Supreme Lord, acting as his internal potency agent is Yogamaya, but acting as his external potency agent is Durga. It's one potency, acting differently according to the circumstance. under the direction of the Supreme Lord. So Maya Adhyakshena Prakriti. Maya Adhyakshena Prakriti. Under the Adhyaksha of Krishna, the Prakriti does what it does. It doesn't act independently. Prakriti acts according to the Adhyaksha of Krishna. So, and when instructed, Yogamaya does internal potency things, and when instructed, Yogamaya does the external potency things. But it's one potency, both under Krishna's direction. But one is higher, and the other is of a lower nature, specific for conditioned souls. The lower nature one. So skipping ahead a little bit, this is now a discussion of another one of the forms of the Supreme Lord. That's here. Lord Brahma. So here's Brahma speaking about Brahma, or because Brahma is a post, and different persons occupy the post, and here's what the post of Brahma is like. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, because he's surrounded by cows, he's Govinda, from whom the separated subjective portion Brahma receives his power for the regulation of the mundane world. Now, from whom the separated subjective portion Brahma, this is Bhaktisiddhanta's college language or technical language. Brahma gets his power from Krishna, and he is called here subjective, separated, so he's a living entity, generally. Living entity, separated subjective portion. But Brahma gets his power from the personality of Godhead, just as the sun manifests some portion of his own light in all the effulgent gems that bear the names Surya Kanta, etc. So in case you don't know what a Surya Kanta is, it's a spiritual, it's a worldly gem that carries light. Like sometimes you have crystal and you put crystal in light and it'll sparkle because light is reflecting off the crystal. But a Suryakanta gem literally absorbs light of the sun, and you hold it. I have never held one. And it's luminous, like the sun is luminous. But that luminosity is derived from the sun. Just a portion. Some portion of the effulgence of the sun is stored within that Suryakanta gem. So similarly, some portion of the potency of the Supreme Lord is invested within Lord Brahma for the purpose of creation, where he gets his power to do what he does. This is a commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where he is explaining this conceptions of divinity idea, that it is important to note that many Puranas propound the theory that Lord Vishnu and Lord Brahma being one. The theory of Lord Vishnu and Lord Brahma being one. The analogy of the sun and the precious gem Suryakanta Mani will help one to understand this oneness. Got it? I don't need to explain. It's pretty clear. Now, conceptions of divinity-wise, some persons may have that idea because it comes from the Puranas, it seems to, and they don't have the oneness idea that's being described here. So in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, this is a BBT painting illustrating an event where Lord Brahma was very happy to receive a request from Krishna to come visit him in Dwarka. So Brahma paid him a visit. And when he went to see Krishna, the person that was guarding the door wasn't Jai and Vijay, that was in Vaikuntha. So, but there was a gatekeeper, a doorkeeper, and the doorkeeper said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm Lord Brahma." Well, he said, "Let me go tell Krishna you've come. Krishna sent for me." So he went to tell Krishna. The messenger came back and said, "Krishna wants to know which Lord Brahma." And Lord Brahma said, "What do you mean, which Lord Brahma? I'm the father of the four Kumaras, the four-headed Lord Brahma, Chaksha, to the four-headed Lord Brahma, the head of this universe." And so just wait here, I'll see what Krishna has to say about that. So while he was waiting, Lord Brahma saw what the other Lord Brahmas couldn't see. Some had not just 4 heads, but 10 heads, and 100 heads, and 1,000 heads, and 10,000 heads, and lots of heads. And they came before Krishna with their metal helmets and played their obeisances, making a big clatter before Krishna. So he could see all these Lord Brahmas. Although they couldn't see each other, he could see them all. And then they offered their obeisances, and Krishna spoke with them, and then they went elsewhere. And then our Lord Brahma of this universe came before Krishna and said, "Oh, how nice you have come. I just wanted to see you." And Lord Brahma said, "Seeing you is the perfection of seeing, because you're the Supreme Personality of Godhead." And I was very proud, thinking, I'm Lord Brahma, but I know that I'm nothing compared to you. So that's the conception of divinity specific to Lord Brahma. We have already heard something about Durga in relation to Krishna or Govinda and his internal potency, external potency. Here's Lord Brahma. Now, conceptions of divinity is our theme. Let us go on to the next. So this is the very next verse in the sequence, and it's speaking about Ganesha. Gana, Adiraja. Gana, Adiraja is Ganesha. And Ganesha is whatever deva one has an interest in. Ganesha is essential because he's the removal of obstacles in karmakanda yagyas, and so you need Ganesha to help you get on the other side of whatever obstacles there are, to get the limited and temporary things that you may want. So here's the translation. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, whose lotus feet are always held by Ganesha upon the pair of tumuli. And Bhaktisiddhanta's English vocabulary is better than those of us that have English as our primary language. I didn't know what a tumuli is, so I had to look it up in a dictionary. And it turns out tumuli is the Latin word, it's the plural for tumulus, and tumulus means what it says at the bottom, to bulge or to swell. So a traditional use of this word tumulus, Latin word, is in some cultures when an elder, village elder or VIP or a holy man or somebody dies, instead of just burying them, or in Vedic culture making a samadhi, they place a mound of earth called the tumulus, indicating that's where this exalted person is now, the body is now buried. And you get more than one tumulus, you get tumuli. So on the head of an elephant, there are these two protrusions at the top of their head, and they're tumuli, or kumbha dvandve. Kumbha means pot, and dvandva means two of them. So Bhaktisiddhanta just calls it a pair of tumuli, protruding from his elephant head. So the lotus feet of Govinda are always held by Ganesha upon those protrusions at the top of his head. Why? In order to obtain power for the function of destroying all obstacles in the path of progress of the three worlds. Now he says it very diplomatically. Progress on the path of the three worlds. That's Karmakanda Yajna. Karmakanda Yajna is where some sacrifice is performed for some deva in order to get something limited and temporary. Ganesha helps remove the obstacles on the path of progress of the three worlds. So where does Ganesha get the power to do that? From the lotus feet of Govinda, who are upon his head. The tumuli at the top of his head. And our Gaudiya Acharyas explain that form of Govinda that places his feet on the head of Ganesha is Lord Nrsingadev. Because it's actually Lord Nrsingadev that removes obstacles. So for Ganesha, he moves obstacles in the path of material progress, and Nrsingadev removes obstacles in the path of spiritual progress. Those of you that have read Nectar of Devotion, you know that there's 64 activities or items of seva. And one of those, if you look carefully, is worship of Ganesha. It's one of the 64. So Prabhupada was asked in Vrindavan, Prabhupada, you never taught us this one. Is there a reason? It's right in your Nectar of Devotion. And Prabhupada said, if you worship Ganesha, you'll have material desire, and he'll help fulfill your material desire. And so you don't worship Ganesha. I didn't teach you that. You worship Lord Nrsingadev, because he'll remove the obstacles in the path of spiritual progress. Although, this is just a detail, in Chaitanya Mangala, one of the original biographers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaks Ganesha's name at the beginning in the Mangalacharana prayers, because he's not the Vaishnava like us. He's a Vaishnava in the topmost standard, and to follow Rupa Goswami, where the obstacles he wants removed is the obstacles that stand in the way of spiritual progress. So for us, we worship Lord Nrsingadev, and commonly right after Arti, in all of our centers all over the world, and in home programs, commonly, in home worship, after you have Arti, you sing the Nrsinga prayers. And there's a reason. If there's some mistake that was made during the Arti, there would be some reaction or some difficulty coming your way. And so we worship Lord Nrsingadev for inadvertent mistakes that may have been made, and thus the obstacles that will come from seva aparad. Nice, huh? We didn't learn, Prabhupada just gave us sing Nrsinga prayers, so little children, it's one of the first things children learn to do is sing Nrsinga prayers. So that's the position of the worship of Ganesh, certainly very popular in India. And he has his position in relation to the topmost conception, the Bhagavan conception. So we have just two more and we're done for the evening. This is the sun. They're worshippers of the sun. But the Savita is highlighted at the beginning. It's the sun. That's the topic. And Yasya Gyaya is under the order of Govinda. The sun is moving. The sun, who is the king of all the planets, full of infinite effulgence, the image of the good soul, is as the eye of this world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in pursuance of whose order the sun performs his journey, mounting the wheel of time. So those that are familiar a little bit with Vedic cosmology, the sun moves. And the sun moves on the wheel of time. There are nice drawings depicting how this works. But the movement on the wheel of time, because even time moves according to the Lord's indication, and the sun moves according to the Lord's indication. And the sun planet is the source of life and light within the universe. And where does the sun get its potency? Not for this evening, but some of you have read in chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada's explanation of something that directly contradicts what science says, that the stars in the sky are but reflections of the light of the sun. There's one sun in the universe. And that's in direct contradiction. So, the twinkling stars in the sky. Now, there was this whole month-long discussion in the GBC conference about what does that mean. And one very simple explanation goes like this. There's more than one idea of what the terminology, the Vedic terminology of reflected light is. One is, here's a mirror, here's the light, and just reflects the light. That's one idea. Then another, which Antardweep, who is in charge of the Vedic planetarium, says there's a Vedic conception of reflection, which is something more like transmitting, or using a Western word, channeling. That is to say, the light of the sun is but the light of the Brahmajyoti. It's not the light of the Brahmajyoti. It derives its light from the Brahmajyoti. And similarly, the light of all luminous objects in our universe are channeling or they're receiving transmitted light from, so they're luminous, but they're receiving transmitted light, just like this Suryakanta gem. It's the light of the sun within the gem. So there may be luminous objects, but their luminosity is derived from the luminosity of the sun, which is deriving its luminosity from the Brahmajyoti. Got it? It's a very long, complex discussion, but that was giving you a little summary. The sun is very powerful, and its powerfulness and its movement is derived from the personality of Godhead. This is from Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita purport. The sun exhibits its infinite effulgence due only to the power invested in him by Govinda. Here's the Bhagavad Gita verse. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of the whole world, comes from me, and the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. So, which is the conception of divinity that gets the rating or the understanding of the source of all other things. There's a nice painting of the sun god whose chariot is being driven by charioteer and horses moving under the indication of time. The 10th canto of the Bhagavatam speaks of King Satrajit, who was a sun worshipper, and he worshipped so intently and seriously and devotedly that the sun god himself came before Satrajit and offered him his benediction in the form of the Shamataka jewel. But unfortunately, the Shamataka jewel ended up being the demise of Satrajit because it made him proud. Pride blocked him from his proper regard for Krishna. So watch out for pride. You can have a Suryakanta gem, the Shamataka jewel, that's also okay. But watch out for pride. And we also find in the Mahabharata that it's the sun god that provided the Akshaya Patra, the mystical pot for Draupadi to cook from. So the sun god has his role even in the lives of devotees, but he derives his power from the personality of Godhead. And here's our last slide. So the conceptions of divinity was the topic at the beginning. Some have come in a little bit late. Why is it important? Because the Vedic or Vedanta conception of the highest truth is that from which everything comes, and the search of the Vedas is to find that from which everything comes, and finding that from which everything comes, what do? When you're in the presence of a great person, you offer respect to that great person and you want to serve that great person. It's just natural. So understanding of the source of all things, the conception of divinity, is very important. There are persons who are atheists, at least nominal atheists, who say whatever they say. There's no God. But then they're accepting the authority of somebody that says there's no God. Like Prabhupada would speak like this. When he went to Moscow, he said to Professor Kotovsky, "What's the difference between you and me? You have your authority. Everyone has to have some authority. Your authority is Lenin. My authority is Krishna. So what's the difference between us? Now we can talk about which is the better authority to accept, Lenin or Krishna. But you accept some authority. And I accept some authority." He's just speaking principle, not like, I don't like Lenin. But so the principle, we accept some authority. And the authority the authority to accept is the highest conception of divinity. And when that's clear, then what do? You devote yourself to that divinity, to the Supreme. If there's lack of clarity, if there's fuzziness, or because in childhood I learned this, or I learned that, or I learned the other, then you're not going to progress. just like we were reading in the Lamrita yesterday evening. One of Prabhupada's disciples, not yet initiated, had long hair and said, "What's wrong with long hair?" Ram had long hair, Krishna had long hair, Christ had long hair. What do you have against long hair? Prabhupada said, "Because now you're my follower, cut your hair." So it was out of affection for Prabhupada, he cut his hair. But he was attached. So we can be attached to our conceptions of divinity and think all kinds of things, or get confused and say, there's too many conceptions out there. I don't know which one to choose. It's what is the source of everything? And all of this exercise has been to help us understand gradations of conceptions of divinity are there, and a thoughtful person can look at them and not be bewildered, because there are different hierarchical conceptions of divinity. What's the source of everything? The Brahma Jyoti, this young girl, that 18, A&M, Texas A&M grad student in some field of engineering, I don't know what, said this. Let's take a look at Bhagavad Gita chapter 14, the last verse. Those who have this Advaita conception, they want to become one with Brahman, right? He said, yes. Let's see what Krishna says. Krishna is the Pratishta of Brahman. The basis and support of that which those who want to merge have is Krishna. The basis and support is Krishna. So is it difficult to choose? How do I decide? The basis and support, the absolute truth, the highest conception of divinity. That we've been given, even without having asked for it, we've been given very graciously, very thoroughly, very eloquently conceptions of divinity that are so clear. We should be able to assimilate and then help people of this world gently to move to the proper conception of divinity and then serve Krishna. So I'll end with that and see if there's any comments or discussion. Yes?
If we have, let's say, deities of other demigods in our house, like, what are we supposed to do?
Well, here's what Prabhupada said. They don't go on they're to be respected, but they don't go on the same altar as the altar where Lord Vishnu or Vishnu Tattva forms are worshipped. And they can be a painting or a figurine or something here and there in the house, and we offer our respect to those. So like something similar to what's done in Jagannath Puri. Everything. If we have the right conception, everything is fulfilled by watering the root of the tree. So similarly, and by putting food in the stomach, so the nourishment goes to the whole body. So disrespect isn't given if I don't have those images or paintings or photos or something in my home. So once you have them, you don't want to disrespect them. If you had them from some previous time, they're not an essential part of our worship, because that's an offense. We don't want that problem. Yes?
One question, like Satyavrata, to save Satyavrata took Krishna took Matsya avatar, right?
Yeah.
He saved the Satyavrata and
yes.
Vedas.
Yes.
And he carried in a ship, and that
yes.
Ship is carried by
yeah.
with So actually how it is, I need to understand, because Vedas written only after Dwapar Yuga and Kali Yuga. After Dwapar Yuga, Vasishtha wrote the Vedas into form. Earlier it is transferred through mouth to mouth.
So what's your question? Was it known before it was written down? Is that your question?
Vedas are there from.
What's your question? Just be concise with your question, please.
Okay. No, like Vedas are written that time, or it is only after Dwapar Yuga it written?
It was written. It was, as you said, it was available in oral tradition before it was written. And when it was written from oral to written.
Okay.
Oh, really?
So when he saved Satyavrata, that time Satyavrata knows that Vedas, that's why Vedas been saved through Satyavrata.
Well, time. I'm not sure what your problem is. It's a pastime that took place, in a previous age, and during that previous age, he saw the cosmic annihilation during his lifetime. The Lord arranged a flood, cosmic annihilation, but the Vedas were saved, and Satyavrata was part of the Leela of saving the Vedas, preserving the Vedas, and Matsya spoke the Vedas. So, but that was the previous age. So they were available then in an oral form. What's the problem? Is that okay? Okay.
Maharaj,
Yeah.
continuity with Prabhuji's question. Vedas were in oral form, and then how were they stolen by that demon?
Madhu and Kaitava?
Hayagriva.
No. Hayagriva is the form of the Lord that killed them,
Okay.
and the demons were Madhu and Kaitava.
Okay.
And the form of the Lord that killed them is Hayagriva.
Yes.
Okay. Or other. So Hayagriva spoke the Vedas to Brahma through his horse's mouth. But it was the form of Vishnu who spoke the Vedas after they were stolen. So how were they stolen, as you want to know? In sound. Because Brahma was snoozing. He was yawning. And as he was yawning, the Vedas were manifest from his mouth, and they stole the Vedas. Madhu and Kaitava stole the Vedas in that form, not in a written form, in a sound form. Oh. And then Brahma went to Lord Vishnu, help! These two demons just stole the Vedas. They're going to do bad things with the Vedas. Help! So he came, Madhusudana. And then he he delivered the Vedas again to Brahma as Hayagriva.
So Vedas were still in Brahma's
Sound.
Brahma's
Yeah.
sound. The sound, was
Sound
stolen.
came and then manifest out of his mouths.
Yes. And Brahmaji wanted Lord Vishnu to save Veda.
Yeah,
So Rakshasas could not make misuse of it.
that's right. You got it. Yes.
Lord Shiva is not a demigod. Lord Shiva is a different category. So can we worship him on the altar,
No.
considering him as the topmost
No.
Vaishnava? Is
No.
that conception?
No. Because for two reasons, one of the reasons is similar to what Prabhupada said about why we don't worship Ganesha. Because we have a material conception. We honor Lord Shiva particularly on Shivaratri. We have a special day. We honor Lord Shiva. We worship Lord Shiva as the greatest of all Vaishnavas. That's what we do. Now, supposing, I don't think you're one of those somebodies, but supposing there's somebody there's this description. Prabhupada was having a discussion with a devotee, Bahulashva, who was the president in the San Francisco temple years ago. And in this, I've heard the recording over and over again. Prabhupada, he was asking Prabhupada, can this man, he's been coming to the temple for years, he's very faithful to you and he has become a Krishna Bhakta, but in his upbringing he was a Shiva worshipper. Can he be initiated? And then Prabhupada asked, does he very clearly understand the position of Krishna and the position of Lord Shiva in relation to Krishna? He said, yes, Prabhupada, he's very clear. But he's, still has some attachment. Then Prabhupada said he can be initiated. Instruct him that the worship of Lord Shiva should be done in a separate altar, and after making offerings to Krishna, he can offer the prasad of Krishna to Lord Shiva. But he doesn't worship Lord Shiva, as is done in Jagannath temple. He didn't say that. But that's not, okay, now we have a new standard for ISKCON worship. We have 2 altars. That's not, it was a concession for a man who had a lifelong attachment to a particular practice. Yet he understood, just, was attached. But, which one of us in this room, the answer is nobody. Which one of us in this room didn't have something other than the way that we're worshiping today some time ago? Nobody. We all had something. So what do we do with that something? We understand it's fulfilled in perfection by pouring water on the root. By worshiping Krishna, it's all fulfilled. And there's no neglect, there's no offense, there's nothing incomplete. Just worship Krishna. Or Lord Jagannath, or Gaurnitai. Just worship Krishna. Everything is there. Some plateau decay. In the great reservoir of water, all the wells and little ponds and everything that they serve is fulfilled in this one reservoir of water. Everything is there. Yes?
Maharaj, coming to the point of prasadam, you said once offered to Krishna and then offered to the gods. In certain situations, we see that someone comes and then Ganesha Prasad, book distribution time, or anywhere we go and then they give. I just wanted to know, Krishna conscious devotees, by taking that prasad, how would it affect?
Well, we don't do that. So that's how it doesn't affect, because we don't do that. We take only Krishna Prasad. We don't offend anybody, but we take only Krishna Prasad. You can say thank you very much, and you just don't take.
Yeah, that's for the serious devotees, Maharaj. But if at all someone who is progressing or something like that,
Well, and that's how we do our training. What happens if you fall off your bicycle? You bruise your knee.
Mm.
That's what happens. That's what happens.
They will learn.
Well, we're enjoying. Take only. What is Krishna saying about those who eat food that's not offered to me? What happens? That's what happens. Anything else? Yes.
Maharaj, in Valmiki Ramayana, Valmiki says that Lord Rama is 1/4 of the Vishnu's potency, and Lakshmana is 1/4. Now we say that Lord Rama and Krishna are same. So how do we understand this?
I'm unfamiliar with that particular reference, so it's hard for me to comment. I know what Padma Purana says, because it's in Laghu Bhagavatamrita. And in Padma Purana, it says, Rama and Nrsimha and Krishna are Sad, Aishvarya, Purna avatars. They have the 6 opulences, the 6 Aishvaryas, Purna in full. And the other forms have a degree less. or in nectar devotion. We know that Krishna, this is not Rama and Lakshmana, we know that Krishna has 64 qualities and Vishnu tattva forms have 60 qualities, so something less. So I can't comment on a reference you're making from Valmiki Ramayana without seeing the reference and becoming a little familiar with the context.
Sure, Maharaj. That's why I was also, because I've never seen that earlier.
Well, so I can't comment. And which version of Valmiki Ramayana is 10% the original version of Valmiki Ramayana? That's another question. You follow my question? So how do we know that what you just said is in Valmiki Ramayana is an authentic Valmiki Ramayana?
It's an English translation which I bought from our chapel.
But I'm saying, where does that come from? I don't know. Is that really Valmiki Ramayana? Or is it somebody saying it's Valmiki Ramayana? That's my question. So the source of authenticity of something, when you start getting into something like this, therefore, we are very careful where we get our references. And if you hear something that it doesn't sound right, you have to find verification from our acharyas. It may not even be Shastra that you're hearing or like puzzled about. If our acharyas comment on it, then we can feel comfortable. If they don't comment on it, we don't know. Therefore, there's some danger in reading many things, specifically that don't have commentary of our acharyas connected to it. It's risky business. What are we going to do? Because there's some things out there like Ramayana that would like. Where's our acharya's commentary on Ramayana? Therefore, we have the Bhagavatam. That much we know. And where's there in the Bhagavatam? What does the Bhagavatam have to say about these four, the Chaturvyuha? Read very carefully the first chapter of the 5 chapters in Bhagavatam, and it's very clear. These 4 are Purna, not 1/4 and 1/2. Yes.
I'm sorry if I'm misunderstanding it wrongly.
Which?
When you showed about the concept of divinity with reference to Surya Dev,
Yeah.
you mentioned that Yudhishthira received the Akshar Patra from the sun god.
Yeah.
How is that becoming okay when he had Krishna with him and he was taking it from
Well, because he is a pure devotee. He's not like us, or we're not like him. It's similar to, not the same as, but similar to the young gopis in Vrindavan worshipping Katyayani. The commentary is very, very clear. It's the internal potency. I can show you the reference later. It's right in the Bhagavatam reference. There's a discussion between Shruti and Vidya. That's a high-level discussion, where Katyayani is the internal potency, because the internal potency alone can give Krishna's association. They were worshipping the internal potency. They wanted Krishna's association, not the mundane Katyayani. So there's levels of divinity depending upon the consciousness of the individual, like Yogamaya and Durga. After she did what she did to serve Krishna, she went to serve Krishna in another capacity, known by the name Durga. Like that. Last question. Yeah.
So they say Lord Ganesh wrote the Bhagavatam when Vyasa told. Now, how can we should not worship Ganesha?
How should we say to not worship Ganesha?
Yeah.
Because it says what? Where?
Lord Ganesha wrote the Bhagavatam, right? So which is the highest.
No. Try again.
Or
He just described Mahabharata, not Srimad Bhagavatam.
sorry.
He was a scribe.
So
It's the stenographer that sits in the courtroom. There she goes. She's the stenographer in the courtroom. And there's the judge. Now, he was just doing a nice service for Vyas. He was good at it.
that's his function.
Yeah, it's not his only function, but that's something he did as a service. So, now your question was, why don't we worship him? Well, we honor an ant. We honor the Prabhus. We honor Ganesh. We worship Krishna. He's mentioned in Brahma Samhita. He's being honored by Lord Brahma. He's Lord Brahma. He is deriving his power from Govinda, and therefore we worship Govinda. Govinda Badi Purusham. We worship Govinda, the primeval Lord. We honor other living entities. We're not disrespectful to other living entities. We worship the Supreme Lord. That's the whole message of this evening. The conceptions of divinity. Okay. So two little things. I have some Mahaprasadam. I'm going to do my little ritual of giving out some Mahaprasadam to everybody. We'll start with the kids as soon as they come running downstairs. And then one other thing is, I brought with me some flash drives of yatra visits to Dwarka and Ayodhya.